Hey,
Hello.
hello.
All right, so we have Sebastian here. If anybody has any question, please put them on the chat, and then we'll answer them from there. So let's see, auto. So we have one question from Marco. So auto import plugins, any ability to specify order of loading and options as client.js?
So that's a good question, Marco. We will still support client.js as well as server.js. For the ordering, we are trying to make a standard, so plugins should be able to use hooks directly instead of directly exporting a function to some plugins hook in order to run your code if you have to wait for a specific one. Normally, plugins shouldn't depend on a specific order if you're just adding like a Vue multi-select or any plugin. But if some plugin is to configure another plugin, then you should listen to this plugin hook in order to configure. But there will be example for this.
Nice. All right, so we have another question from Jonathan. So he wants to thank you so much for the talk. And is it possible to have an incremental built in Nuxt 3 static sites?
That's a tough question, Jonathan, but I expected it. Right now, it's not possible. And we have to define what is incremental build in a way that there is incremental static generation for generating the static page, and there is also incremental build where we will actually build only the current page you're visiting in development. Let's say you are inside the index page. So we will add the index page inside the router, and then Webpack will actually build it. And when we try to navigate to another page, then we will push this page into Webpack, and then the build will start to be bigger and bigger the more you navigate, but the first build will be really, really small. We will try something for this. I know Next.js is doing it. We got an idea how we can do it with Vue Router 4. But for the static generation part, this means generating only one page. The biggest challenge here is the ability to know the link between the page. Let's say I have to generate a new blog post. I will have also to know what is the page listing my blog post, because this one will have to be generated as well. If there is pagination, then maybe the other page as well should be generated. This is a really tough problem, and this won't be resolved as easy as the incremental build. So I don't know yet. First, we need to have a stable version of Nuxt 3 before tackling these big issues.
Yeah, that makes total sense. All right, so while we wait for that, Stuart does have a question. He says, you mentioned the use fetch static during the chat.
Yeah.
So how can you get involved in this feature?
Right now, like we actually coded the use fetch 2 weeks ago. I finished yesterday before doing the live demo. So this is really early prototype. The repo is still private. The maintainers are working on it. But as soon as we have something a little bit stable, we will definitely involve more people that are part of the maintaining, part of the maintainers on Nuxt community. And I think, Stuart, you're one of the maintainers of module. So that will start on the Discord. And after some discussion, we will add more people to help us improve Nuxt 3 before opening it to the public. Because if we start opening to everyone, this is going to be quite tough to maintain and to release at the end. So it will be you can ping us on Discord and we can chat about this.
Nice. So looks like Pooja got their answer. But Adrian wants to know if you could talk a little bit more about serverless Nuxt and the functions folder.
Yeah, so regarding serverless, that will be quite simple. Right now, you have to use the Vercel builder if you want to deploy in Vercel. If you want to use Netlify function to server render Nuxt, it's not possible because it was not planned for that, but they are working on it at the moment. First, what we need to do is a way to generate one endpoint that will be called like when you call Nuxt build, we generate this .nuxt directory, and there will be like .nuxt/dist/serverless.js, and that will be the entry point you will give to your Lambda. And this will be able to server render your application on a serverless Lambda. And that is the first step. The second step is to be able to know what are the dependency you're using, so we can bundle them and put it into this dist. So your Lambda function will be able to know what are the modules you need to install and what are the dev dependency, which is quite tricky with the Nuxt modules. And lastly, we will also need a way to remove Nuxt and only use Nuxt start, which is only 8 megabytes compared to Nuxt, which is 64 megabytes because we have Webpack, and you don't want Webpack dependency in your Lambda because it's limited to 50 megabytes. So that's why on Nuxt 3, we will directly start working on the serverless endpoint as well as the standalone build, which is packing every of the dependency into one, let's call a zip. So you can directly use this zip and put it into your serverless Lambda. And I think, yeah, for the functions, I would directly put the link for the RFC. You can think of it like Netlify function. I think they are the easiest one to understand. But what is really sexy here is you have access to dollar functions inside your Nuxt application. And let's say you have a functions directory, and inside you have a get user.js. Then in your application, you can directly say $function.get user. And this function will only live on the server side. So you can make a database call directly inside without leaking any sensible information. And it will directly communicate in JSON. So you don't have to enter the requests, the headers. You get the JSON, you send back some JSON, and that's really simple. And it will work both on serverless and Node.js hosting like Heroku.
All right, so Capu has a question. I'll read what he wrote. So has it ever been thought to create almost a completely static site? So for some sites, almost the entire site could be stripped off of JavaScript, and the only components actually need interactivity. However, they still need to be hydrated on the client side, which hurts the performance of the app. Currently, there's no way to do this, but is it a possibility in the future?
Currently, there is a way to do this. If you want to strip down the JavaScript, we have Nuxt hooks. So you can hook into the root, I think it's render.render root. You get back the HTML, so you can strip directly all the script file and JavaScript, and then send it back. It will also work for generate. That's how we did with the AMP directory module, sorry. I might catch you the example so you will understand a bit more what I'm talking about. Let me check the with AMP. Okay, with this, you can see how we did that. But I still don't recommend this because on client side, if you don't have the JavaScript, if you have any dropdown or component that depends on JavaScript, that won't work. And if it's a problem with the client-side hydration, I highly recommend to use Vue lazy hydrate, Vue lazy hydration. That will definitely help on the performances. So you can tell this component doesn't have to be hydrated right away. It can be hydrated after the mounted or when it becomes visible in the viewport. And this has been recommended by the Google Chrome team, this package, and we are planning to have it right inside Nuxt core. Of course, using tree shaking, so only when you import it, it will be added to the bundle.
Ooh, thank you. Before I take Dominica's question, I do want to go to Gregor because it is kind of similar. So he says, is there a value in is there a value in Nuxt 2 or Nuxt 3 where you know that Nuxt generate is running so that you can make conditions on different builds for the generate and the final build? If not, I'm happy to assist implementing. So I think he has a similar question to Capu on purpose.
Yeah, you can use process.static or process.target now, since we actually force right now in Nuxt 2 to define a target. If you're going to generate a static website, you have to specify target static. Then you have it right inside your code with process.target. And this is the value of server or static. So depending on this, you can include script or remove some of them. I think that's what the content module is doing, because he is using a server middleware if you use Nuxt. And if you are planning to generate, it will generate a db.json that will be stored in the static directory. And so, yeah, you can do some condition for this. Regarding Nuxt 3, it's too early to specify this, but I'm planning to remove the mode and the target, so it would be even simpler. And by default, it will be a static rendering, but that's too early to say, because it's serverless, and also we have to handle authentication the right way. But it will be much simpler, so you won't have to handle this logic.
So let's see. Nilanj wants to know if is the serverless function you talked about similar to Firebase Cloud Functions or AWS Lambda, or different?
It's the same. I think Netlify function are using AWS, but yeah, you can see in a way that it's quite similar. We just call it functions directory in a way that it's simply a function that you export. And because the term serverless function is quite known now, and we know it only runs inside a Node.js environment, that's why we choose this name. But it's, yeah, you can think as a similar way, and we will bundle this function as a Firebase function or AWS function at the end. But we just simplify them as much as we can. So you can say it's similar, yeah. But I recommend you to read the RFC to understand more about this.
So Dominicas, yes, wants to know, so I asked yesterday the Next.js creator why Next is better over Nuxt, and I would like to hear why you think Nuxt is better and what are the advantages.
Well, Nuxt is better because we use Vue at first. So I think that we can't really compare, and I don't think it is stated that Next is better, because I do talk with Guillermo a lot. Yeah, they have different approach. I perfectly understand it goes into this serverless way and incremental static generation, like he stated, because of Vercel. I think if it was not working for Vercel, Next.js might be different at some point. But I perfectly understand the way of making advertisement for serverless. I have got some feedback regarding Next and what are the differences. I know in Next.js you cannot have a global state, or if you do, then you don't have anymore this incremental static generation like they stated. We worked a lot on the developer experience, so you can easily connect, add authentication, having plugin making API call, so you're not blocked in any way in your development. Where, for instance, in Next.js, if you want server-side rendering, it's only on the page level. You cannot have component doing data fetching that will be server rendered. So from my point of view, Nuxt is really, really good in a way that you can handle data fetching in your component, and that will also handle server-side rendering. But of course, we may lose this caching layer on top of it that we will handle by default with Nuxt 3. So I think Nuxt 3 will be a really good competitor for Next. For Nuxt.2, we just need a caching layer that will be added with the module anyway. As soon as we have something working for Nuxt3, we will backport it for Nuxt2 as a module. So right now, they have an advantage using Vercel, but we have an advantage where we have full static generation for Netlify, let's say.
Very nice. All right, so we do have a couple more questions. I think Capo wants to kind of go back to what you were saying before. Can you strip the entire chunk? But if there is just one component is interactive, maybe I'm getting it wrong.
We use that it's currently hard to prevent JavaScript bundle to load until the component needs to be hydrated. We have to test with the Vue 3 because I know Evan changed a lot the way it works for hydration. And currently we are stuck with the bundle renderer and the way Vue 2 hydrates. You will have exactly the same issue with the normal Vue application using server-side rendering. So it's hard to go deeper in that area without going inside the Vue bundle renderer, which is managed by Vue for the Vue 2. It's really hard. I know it's improvement for performances, and we will work directly on this for Nuxt3. And we talk with Evan about this. It will be nice to have a V1s that will only work for server-side rendering and disable hydration on client side, but it's still early stage. But this in mind for 3. But you feel free to create an issue so we can discuss about this on the repository.
So Stuart wants to know that the changes with pages in Nuxt3 look great, but is there currently a way to disable the need for pages in Nuxt2? I used the wildcard route page injected by my module, but the page directory is missing and it doesn't work. Yeah.
There is a way to disable the pages. I think I created like 3 years ago. You may have missed this module. It's called the router module for Nuxt. And it will disable the pages directory. So you can create your own router.js. And it can also work similar to the pages directory as well.
Nice. Thanks for providing all those links. So Adrian wants to know, do you think that Vite could ever work with Nuxt3?
Well, could ever, I would say yes. But I know Pickaxe, which is one of the core team of Vue, is actually working on Zip. I mean, he tried. Let me give you another link, which is called Zip for Vite and server-side rendering. And I let you check the not working paragraph, which is quite big. And that's why we are not going to the Vite way at first, because we don't have the time to handle another bundler where a lot of plugin and even our module, like the component module, are based on Webpack. Webpack is really great. And I do believe Vite is a nice kick to the Webpack team so they can get on Webpack 5 and the performances. And since we moved from Babel to ESBuild, we saw a big improvement on the hot module replacement as well as the first build. Plus Webpack 5 caching, I mean, this is way better than Nuxt2. And I know Vite is really fast, but until it's ready for SSR, we will stay on Webpack.
Oh, right. So thank you for having all those links so fast and super handy. I don't know why you don't record dance this time.
Because I think I lost my dancing skill since I'm a dad
like
now.
you automatically dance.
I would do it. Yeah, exactly. I will do a dad dance maybe next year.
Yeah, I agree with Stuart. Speaking in front of a camera.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, even yesterday after the event is done, you kind of walk away from your computer and you're, still at home. So it's kind of weird. So Sebastien, have you picked up any new skills during the pandemic or any new hobbies?
Honestly, I think I didn't have so much time since the baby came 3 months ago. So I didn't have the time to test something new. I bought a basketball hoop in my garden, so I play a bit of basketball to go off the computer. But no, did you?
Well, I've been just crafting more. So that's been keeping me busy.
That's nice.
But congratulations on being a new dad.
Yeah,
That's pretty exciting. So many changes
thank
for
you.
you this year.
A new Nuxter. Yeah, that's a lot of changes, but
Yeah,
it's for the better.
absolutely. It's your first kid? Yeah, congrats.
Yeah, the baby.
That's
I hope he
awesome.
won't be too much on the computer at first.
At first, then all the time.
Yeah, then he will start next.
Yeah.
We will see in 10 years, by the way.
Yes, for sure. That's
All right, thank you guys for the message.
very nice. All right, so if
Cool.
everybody got their questions answered, thank you so much, Sebastian, for your time and putting together the talk. I know that your time is valuable, so we want to thank you and for answering the questions and providing all the links.
Yeah, well, my pleasure. And yeah, I hope his first
I like
one
this
will be
Papa
next.
Nuts. I like that. That's it.
Yeah, nice. Well, thank you very much, guys,
Thank you,
and talk to you
Sebastian.
soon. Bye.